Most people think the golden age of Japanese performance ended in the 1990s. They think the legends were already written. The Supra had already shocked the world, the Skyline had already embarrassed Europe, and the RX-7 had already proven Japan could build a machine that felt almost untouchable. But what most people never realized is that the 2000s became the final decade where Japanese engineers stopped caring about limits. Before emissions rules got stricter, before accountants started making performance decisions, before driving became more digital than mechanical. For one last brief moment, Japan built cars that weren't just fast. They built cars that made the rest of the world nervous. And some of them were so underrated, people still don't understand how quick they really were. And the car at number 1 didn't just dominate its rivals. It quietly ended an entire era. Number 10. The Honda S2000. At first glance, the S2000 didn't look dangerous. It looked small, clean, almost too simple to be taken seriously. But the moment the tachometer climbed past 6,000 RPM, the entire car changed. Under the hood sat a naturally aspirated 2.0-liter engine, producing 240 horsepower. That number may not sound outrageous today, but in the early 2000s, Honda had created the highest specific output naturally aspirated production engine in the world. No turbo, no supercharger, no artificial drama, just pure engineering. And then came the part that shocked everyone. That engine revved all the way to 9,000 RPM. At full throttle, the S2000 didn't sound like a normal sports car. It sounded like something far more serious. 0 to 60 happened in just under 6 seconds. Top speed was around 150 miles per hour. But raw speed was never the real story. Because the S2000 was built to do something many modern cars cannot. It made the driver feel every single movement, every shift, every corner, every mistake. Few cars feel that alive. Number 9. The Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 7. This was the car that turned public roads into rally stages. The Evolution 7 was not just quick, it felt aggressive. Mitsubishi had spent years refining the Evo through world rally competition. And by the time the 7th generation arrived, they had built something frighteningly capable. A turbocharged 2.0-liter engine, all-wheel drive, active yaw control, and enough grip to make physics feel optional. Officially, it made 276 horsepower, but enthusiasts knew the truth. The real number was higher, much higher. Launch it correctly, and 0 to 60 disappeared in less than 5 seconds. But what made the Evo special was not straight-line speed. It was what happened in corners. Most cars asked the driver to respect the limits. The Evo made the limits feel invisible. You could enter a turn faster than common sense allowed, and somehow the car would still find grip. It felt less like driving, and more like the car was thinking ahead of you. That was the magic of the Evolution. And that was also the danger, because it made average drivers feel unstoppable. Number 8. The Subaru Impreza WRX STI. For decades, people argued over one question: Evo or STI? And the 2000s only made that rivalry stronger. Because the STI was not trying to copy anyone. It had its own personality, its own attitude, its own way of being fast. Under the hood sat a turbocharged flat-4 engine producing 300 horsepower. And unlike the Evo's sharper personality, the STI felt rawer, more physical, more mechanical. The steering wheel constantly talked to you. The suspension never hid the road, was instantly recognizable. That deep boxer rumble became one of the most iconic sounds in Japanese performance history. 0 to 60 happened in around 4.7 seconds. Top speed pushed beyond 155 miles per hour. But numbers still miss the point. Because the STI always felt emotional. Where some cars felt engineered, the Subaru felt alive. It wasn't just fast, it had character, and that made people fall in love with it. Number 7. The Mazda RX-8. Some people misunderstood this car from the beginning. Others saw it as one of the bravest things Japan ever built. Because while everyone else was chasing turbochargers, Mazda stayed loyal to the rotary engine. A 1.3-liter twin-rotor producing 232 horsepower. No pistons, no conventional layout, no safe choices, and it revved to 9,000 RPM. The sound alone made it feel different from everything else on the road. 0 to 60 took around 6 seconds. Top speed reached about 145 miles per hour. But speed was only part of its identity. The RX-8 had near-perfect balance, 50-50 weight distribution, a chassis so sharp, some drivers said it felt telepathic. The car seemed to rotate exactly when you wanted, almost before you asked, and for the people who understood it, the RX-8 became unforgettable. Number 6. The Nissan 350Z. When Nissan brought back the Z, they knew it had to matter, because the world had already moved on, and competition had become serious. So Nissan answered with a 3.5-liter V6, producing nearly 300 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, manual transmission, and a design that looked muscular from every angle. 0 to 60 happened in just over 5 seconds. Top speed touched 155 miles per hour. But the 350Z was important for a different reason. It made performance feel accessible again. It was fast enough to be exciting, but balanced enough to feel usable every day. It was not built to scare people. It was built to make people want to drive again. And for many enthusiasts, it did exactly that. Number 5. The Honda NSX-R. By the 2000s, the original NSX was already respected around the world. But Honda looked at that legendary car and decided it still was not perfect enough. So they removed weight, sharpened the suspension, retuned the engine, and transformed the NSX into something much more serious. Under the rear glass sat a 3.2-liter V6, producing nearly 290 horsepower. That may not sound extreme, but this car was never about numbers. It was about precision. Every input felt immediate. Every corner felt cleaner. Every movement felt deliberate. 0 to 60 happened in roughly 4.5 seconds. Top speed climbed beyond 170 miles per hour. But what shocked professional drivers most was not how fast it was how natural it felt at the limit. The NSX-R did not intimidate its driver. It made the impossible feel comfortable. And that is why many still consider it one of the finest driver's cars Japan ever built. Number 4. The Toyota Supra RZ. Even in the 2000s, the Supra was still a monster. Toyota's legendary 2JZ engine had already become famous, but during the early 2000s, its reputation only grew stronger. A twin-turbocharged 3.0-liter inline-six, officially rated at 276 horsepower. But almost everyone knew the real figure was much higher. And the real magic was not stock performance. It was what came after. Tuners discovered the 2JZ could handle insane power without destroying itself. 500 horsepower, 700 horsepower, even 1,000 horsepower. And somehow, the engine kept surviving. Stock, the Supra could hit 60 in under 5 seconds. Top speed was electronically limited, but remove that limiter, and the car kept pulling hard. The Supra became more than a sports car. It became a legend, because very few engines in history earned the trust that the 2JZ did. Number 3. The Mazda RX-7 Spirit R. Some cars disappear quietly. The RX-7 did not. Mazda knew the rotary era was ending, emissions laws were closing in, the market was changing, and time was running out. So before the RX-7 vanished, Mazda built one final version, the Spirit R. This was the ultimate evolution of everything they had learned. A twin-turbo rotary engine, perfect balance, lighter weight, sharper response. Officially, it made 276 horsepower. But like many Japanese performance cars of that era, the real number was often higher. 0 to 60 happened in under 5 seconds. Top speed pushed beyond 160 miles per hour. But what made the Spirit R special was how it delivered speed. The car did not feel heavy. It did not feel forced. It felt fluid, almost like it moved as one single piece. And because only a limited number were made, the Spirit R became one of the most desirable Japanese cars ever produced. The Lexus LFA prototype's forgotten predecessor. The Nissan Skyline GTR R34 NER. Most people know the R34, but the NER version was something else. It was the final and most refined version of a car that had already become a legend. Under the hood sat the RB26 DETT, a twin-turbocharged 2.6-liter straight-six that became one of the most respected engines in performance history. Officially, it made 276 horsepower. Again, that was not the real story. In reality, the NER was making significantly more. 0 to 60 came in around 4.5 seconds. Top speed easily crossed 165 miles per hour. But speed alone never explained the GTR. The real story was confidence. The all-wheel drive system, the balance, the control. The faster you drove it, the more stable it became. That is what made the R34 terrifying for competitors. It was not just quick, it made speed feel effortless. And even now, few Japanese cars carry the same respect. Number 1. The Nissan GTR R35. And then everything changed. Because when Nissan released the R35, Japan stopped chasing Europe and started humiliating it. The world expected another fast GTR. What they got was a supercar killer. A twin-turbocharged 3.8-liter V6, a dual-clutch transmission, advanced all-wheel drive, and launch control that felt almost violent. The result was unbelievable. 0 to 60 in around 3.5 seconds. At a time when that kind of speed belonged only to cars costing 3 times more. Ferrari noticed, Porsche noticed, everyone noticed, because suddenly, a Japanese car was beating machines that had dominated for decades, and it was doing it for a fraction of the price. It was not just speed. It was what it represented. It was the moment Japan proved once again that performance was never about prestige. It was about engineering. And in the 2000s, no country understood that better than Japan. Because while other manufacturers were building fast cars, Japan was building legends.